Welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad to have you. If you're a first-time listener, welcome to the program. Don't forget to subscribe and also give us 5 stars. I'm not ashamed to beg. I'm actually a well-dressed beggar. We like those 5 stars. So, I've got a collar on my shirt today, so I'll be a well-dressed beggar. All right. If you're a return user, we want to listener, we want to say thank you between you and our great guests. We've had some great accomplishments. We are in the top 10% of the fastest growing podcasts in the world. Listeners in 32 countries, 6 continents. And if we could figure out how to market to penguins and recharge their cell phones, we would probably have penguins listen to us in Antarctica. So welcome, everybody. Glad to have you back. There's over 850,000 active podcasts out there. So I'm thankful that you choose to share your time with me. Last little bit of house cleaning to get it out of the way. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to give us those amazing ratings because it tells the world you love the show. And then also look for us on all the social media platforms under the Rex Andrews Show. But most importantly, what I like to tell people to do is go to the rexandrewshow.com website. Today, like every guest that we have, we won't have time to get into everything. So we're just going to kind of touch the tip of the iceberg. So when you go there, there's profile information, links to their businesses, their whatever they're up to. And so please stop by the show website, rexandrewshow.com. All right. So that's it for all the get it out of the way stuff. It's like legal disclaimers. You got to get that stuff out of the way. Got a great guest for you today. I think you'll be excited about our guest. Quite interesting fellow. He is the father of 6 girls. We were chatting off air that he might be able to write a book about raising daughters. So hats off to him. Obviously, he's a husband. He owns 2 businesses. One is an auto restoration company, and he makes custom cars. So how cool is that? And it's a bit way different than one of the other things he does. And he's also in the shop equipment business and sells shop equipment nationwide. But what we're here to talk about today, he's an author and into the sci-fi realm. And haven't had a sci-fi author on the show today. So I'd like to welcome to the show today, Peter Harrett. Peter, how are you?
Good. Glad to be here too.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, the show's all about people stories. Like I say, success doesn't fall out of the sky and hit you. Now, this summer I had airplane parts fly off of a United Airlines that landed 3 blocks from my house. So no, but success isn't like that. It doesn't come and hit you over the head. So it's a journey. So we'd like to go back and talk about your journey of how you got to where you are today. You're obviously a successful entrepreneur, but then also to really want to talk about your book and the genesis and where that all came from. So a little bit of a list of things we want to explore. Where were you born? Okay. And then where did you grow up? Because that's often different. I had a guest on the show that moved 63 times by the time she was 15. We want to know how you spent your time as a kid. You're in the sports, drama, theater, computers, shoplifting, and don't laugh. We had a guest that was a car thief by the age of 15. So people do different things as they're growing up. Then we want to understand a little bit about your parents because your parents had a lot of influence to people. So what your father and mother do as you were growing up? What was your home life like? So that way we kind of have an understanding because home life can do a couple different motivations. We see a lot of times in people I interview that their home life was a supportive environment where they supported their loves and passions. And then there were environments that were dysfunctional and it drove people to be opposite or not in that environment. So Peter, if you could, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born?
Medford, Oregon.
Okay.
And the story about my family were Canadians, folks and grandparents. And the story about how they came to the United States is kind of fun because my grandfather worked in a smelter up in BC. I can't recall the name of it, but it was a big smelter. And during World War II, they made a lot of heavy metals, things like that. And he was just a carpenter, my grandfather, Peter Bennett, who was a poet, by the way, was very a hardworking man, a really good person, and he got leaded 3 times. In other words, picture this: if you're a carpenter in a smelter and you're pounding with hammer, raising a lot of dust, he got those heavy metals in him, and the third time he was leaded, the doctors told him, "You need to get out of here. It's gonna next one will kill you."
Right.
So quite literally, they decided to move and had no idea where to move. So they laid out a map on the table, and he did one of these, and his finger landed on Medford, Oregon.
Okay.
And if it had landed somewhere else, I guess I would have either been a Canadian or could have been Mexican, for all I know. So, so yeah, in those days, Medford was a mill town, and there are 21 sawmills in that city, small city town. And so he got a job in Medford, and then they started to make a life there. Well, my mom at the time she was young, she was 16, and she turned up pregnant. My dad was still in Canada, and so he hitchhiked to Medford, and they did a quickie marriage, and then my grandfather says to my dad, "We'll see you later." And in other words, they were getting married in name only, because I mean, morals were different then,
Sure,
and it was
sure.
really shameful for a 16-year-old girl to turn up pregnant.
Yeah.
So they just basically said, "We'll see you later."
Oh my goodness.
And so he actually left, and he was 17.
Mm.
So he gets to Portland where his sister lives, and she says, "Well, that's not right. That's you don't do that." So she kicked him out and sent him back down there, and the marriage ended up sticking. My older brother was born down there. I was number two, and they ended up with 4 kids. I got 2 brothers and a sister,
Okay.
and so that's how I became an American,
Wow. Okay. So born in the U.S. That's fantastic.
born in the USA.
Okay. So there were four of you growing up. Were you close with your siblings?
Yeah, yeah. My brother and older brother and I are close. There's a 10-year time span between the two. So me and my older brother were born in Medford, and the others were born up here. And I grew up in Portland. Lived
Okay.
lived in Medford until I was 10, and then moved to Portland. Went to high school there, and bounced around a little bit as a kid. Lived in California for a few years, but I've been in the Seattle, Washington area, about an hour north, just far
Sure.
enough north to be in the country. And I've been here since '79, so close to 40 years.
All right. So
Yeah,
you're a Northwest Pacific kind of guy.
yeah.
Um, Fantastic. So when you were growing up as a youth and then into high school, what types of things that were interesting to you? Did you play any sports or activities, or where did you spend your spare time?
Oh yeah, I concentrated on football and girls and cars,
Okay.
kind of in that order. Well, maybe it was football, cars, and girls.
Yeah, yeah, I
Could have
understand
been,
that.
or we could switch some of those around.
Yeah. I was a football player in college, and I had serious degrees until I started realizing that beer and football and girls were a lot more important than
Yeah.
to me at that time than organic chemistry. And so I switched out of that. So, okay, so yeah, I can totally relate. So when you wrapped up in high school, what was your next step? Did you go off to university, or were you doing, trades or odd jobs? What was next?
Yeah, I bounced around a little bit as a kid in California. I lived down there for 3 years. I was in construction, and then my dad had a lumber trading company,
Okay.
and uh, in the Seattle area, and he gave me the opportunity to come in and work with them, and I learned a lot, and it really made me who I am to do that. I spent 25 years trading lumber. Then NAFTA came along, and the spotted owl, and the entire industry disappeared.
Wow.
It all went overseas, and it was really a kind of a crying shame because, um, at least from my perspective, because entire American industries went overseas. North 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 Carolina, High Point, North Carolina had hundreds of furniture factories.
Yep.
All the moldings, millwork, doors, and windows was all American made. All those industries went away, and that's what we did. Is we sold railroad cars of factory lumber to manufacturers making stuff.
Okay.
All those manufacturing jobs went away. So
Wow.
I had to find something else to do. So I
Okay.
started pulling rabbits out of my hat, and I started a business selling industrial coatings
Hmm.
called Top Secret Coatings. And so what we were doing actually was selling government spec paint to the public, which is wonderful stuff. It was really
Sure.
the good stuff
The good stuff,
that you
right?
can't get anywhere else. So we ended up selling that back in 2014. And again, I found myself needing something to do. So we started Top Secret Customs and Restorations. We liked the name because people didn't forget it.
Yeah.
And Top Secret is kind of a joke, the name is, but we ended up with, a pretty big shop. It's probably right up there with the biggest shops in the country. We
Wow.
had 20 employees, and we got 30, 40 or more cars in our shop at any given time.
Wow.
And we build a quality hot rods and restoration cars. And naturally, people would come into the shop, and we have a lot of car lifts in there,
Sure.
car hoist,
Yep.
and they'd say, "Oh, how can I get one?" Because there's no car lift stores.
Yeah.
You just can't
Right.
walk into a car lift store.
It's
So
not
we decided,
located next to your Walmart anywhere in a shopping mall. All right.
yeah, no. So we started that business. It's Olympic equipment,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, the business is doubles in volume. Sales doubles in volume every year. The first year, I think we sold 125 car lifts. Then it was 250. Last year, it was over 500, and this year we're headed for 1,000. So I'm
Wow.
selling them nationwide, and that's been really fun, and the creative process has been excellent.
So, in selling those lifts, are you selling them direct to customers, aficionados, or is it shops, or both, or
Yeah, auto shops, but the backyard guys love them. They're
yeah?
affordable, so you can buy a two-post car lift, a 9,000-pound car lift, as an example, for about $2,000, which
Oh, that's in
which
reach.
isn't bad
Yeah.
considering. And and so we have them manufactured on a toll basis for us, and we just opened a warehouse in Ohio, so we have two warehouses now, one in Seattle and one in Ohio,
Okay.
and it's going well.
That's fantastic. What a great success story. You didn't start off there, but who does? That's fantastic. So, when did you get I mean, let's talk about your book, because that's kind of what I really wanted to get into today is where did you get the bug to start writing? I mean, here you are, a business owner, and you were a football and girls kind of and cars kind of guy. So, that usually is not a combination. I mean, because usually when I talk to a lot of authors, they talk about, well, I started writing journals when I was 9, and I was into all that stuff. So it sort of seems a little out of context. So where did you get the writing bug?
Well, I've always liked language and playing with words. Um, it's creative. I mean, even just when I'm talking to people, I'm not bouncing silly junk around in my head,
Yeah.
and so uh, you know, uh, my my books are different than I love science fiction and fantasy,
Yeah.
but my books are different in that it's not heavy science fiction with spaceships battling it out and space armies and stuff. I get kind of tired of that.
Yeah.
So my version of science fiction or fantasy is lighter and enjoyable. So I regressed a little bit. Let me go back to the beginning. Um, with these businesses, particularly with the industrial coatings business, I had to write all of the literature, all of the technical data, all the sales information,
Wow.
and a half a dozen websites at that time, all the content for that stuff, and I enjoyed it. seemed like I excelled at it. So then the same thing come along for the restoration shop and Olympic equipment. I had to write everything, the warranties, technical data, everything, all of the ads. So I think I got pretty good writing. So um, one day my daughter Valerie, my youngest one, who is autistic, but she's high functioning. She's a good kid, and so she got a homework assignment one day, and the homework assignment was creative writing. Write a story about whatever you want to write about, and then she, would hand in the assignment. So she asked me for advice, and that was where things went south.
Ah.
So we came up with a plot, a Supergirl kind of plot where she had a magic ring.
Mm-hmm.
And so Valerie completed her assignment with my help and then turned it in, and she got a grade. And when I say when things went south, that's because I couldn't leave it alone.
Ah.
And that's what this turned into,
Mm-hmm.
the Rings of Hesseron. So I took over the project, couldn't leave it alone, found myself getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to write. I stopped reading. I stopped mowing the lawn. I stopped watching TV, and basically all I've done the last 2 years is write,
Okay.
and it's been very enjoyable and rewarding, and yeah, that's how it
So
all started.
So would you classify in your mind the book being heavier on fantasy and less on, space and out, the universe, or is it equally balanced, or how would you just, if you were going to sit down and say this is kind of the book, because it, let's face it, everybody has a perception of all of the, the Star Wars movies, the Battlestar Galacticas, not so much Star Trek, but I mean Star Trek. They weren't battling people as much, but they were, they were exploring. So how would you classify it if you were to give it a balance?
I would say it really doesn't fall into any of those categories.
Okay.
Because it's about the people,
Okay.
and sure, there's I think it's fun because the story starts out with the ring bearer. She's got these five rings. They're sentient rings. They're alive, and she becomes a very powerful person because of those rings, and they're losing a war against a vicious enemy that's taking over the galaxy, and so she hides in the past to get away from them, and sets up this time loop where she can live out the rest of her life in the past in 2431 BCE, and then pass on these rings to her um, offspring, and then when knowing that she'll be reborn later in the 21st century, and then um, uh, reestablish herself and get and receive those rings once more, and with the knowledge that she learned the first time, she can win the war. And so there's a lot of time periods between, the distant future, 3,000 years in the future, and the past, which adds up to about 7,000 years total, and the families and people there's a big progression. There's a lot of characters involved,
Wow.
but I think that my uh, character development is far better than you see in any other science fiction book or story or even movie. It's a lot like Star Wars, except without all the spaceships.
Sure.
Now,
Okay.
Star Wars was good because there was especially in the first three series, three movies, there was good character development and it was
Yeah.
fun. And it
Yeah.
got kind of heavy later on,
Yeah.
and too heavy on the space battles and all of that, armies and things.
Right.
But the first three were pretty fun.
Yeah, they
And
did.
and I didn't intentionally do that, but that's where it went.
Well, yeah, I think, looking back, I hadn't really thought about that. But if you look at how they developed the story of Luke Skywalker and also Princess Leia and Yoda and stuff, yeah, they did a good job of introducing that. But later on, it was just, Here's, and
Yeah.
Darth Vader. Here later on, there's just a whole bunch of people, and they were off to go fight, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Jar
yeah,
Jar Meeks and all that. It just was
yeah,
really not as good as the first three.
that's true. And if you look at that time, the other sci-fis that kind of came out was like Aliens.
Hmm.
That was an interesting. You had Space Odyssey 2001 in that era. Um, you kind of had like the Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Yeah, it was an interesting time, and there were a lot of movies at that time that just sort of sprung on to the scene with lots of fanfare and a lot of popular following, and so kind of cracked that genre open. So, did you publish on your own, or did you go to a publisher, or how did that process go?
Yeah, I'm a first-time publisher, well, writer, sorry,
Okay,
and so I had to publish it myself because the major publishing houses, because of COVID, they're not taking on any new writers.
yeah,
So I had to do it myself, and that has been a, a learning experience as well.
yeah,
Um, so we had not only did I have to basically learn how to write, but promote a book, publish it, the whole thing, get it printed.
yep,
Uh, the Rings of Hesseron is coming out in audio soon. It's been recorded. It just has to be, formatted
right,
and distributed. But Amazon's got it, and
nice,
Amazon loves the book. And just yesterday, they approached us about promoting the book. They want exclusivity with it, and so we're going to give them exclusivity with the Kindle and the audio, and
fantastic.
and so they're going to take that ball and run with it.
Wow, that's great. Congratulations, because as you know, that's a packed field on books on Amazon. I mean, and
Yeah.
people sort of somewhat forget that's Amazon's genesis. They were a bookseller.
Yeah,
That's what.
well, I remember, I look back, I used to drive a ways, back in, what would it be, in the late 90s, to work, back and forth to work, listen to the radio, and they talk about Amazon stock, and they'd say this stuff's a joke, and
Yeah,
it's worthless, and they've never made a dime, and they're never gonna, and I don't know I've never bought stock, but I laugh at that now because now it's a colossus.
yes, yes, and it's just disrupt. They're just disruptive in retail. I mean, they're just killing retail, and that was even before um, the pandemic and the lockdowns. I mean, they're just
Oh,
absolutely. I keep track of that industry just because I've done a lot of consulting in that industry, and there were already 5 or 6 thousand stores predicted to close in 2020, and those predictions, came out in January based on what they'd seen before.
hmm.
And Amazon's absolutely wiped out brands. Toys R Us is gone. You look at
Oh
that.
yeah.
Sears is on its last leg, if there's anything left there. I mean, there's
No,
just
there's nothing left to Sears.
yeah. And so, it's because I can remember, and you're old enough to remember this, looking through the Sears catalog, and my mom would give it to us and say, circle what you have as an interest for
Yeah.
Christmas and things like that. And so the good, better, best, here's the good one, here's the better one, here's the best. So
A Red Ryder BB gun, right?
that's right. That's right. So no, it's very impactful. And it's interesting because, and again, we're on a little bit of a tangent, but we'll talk about this just because of Amazon picking up your book. When you look back at the .com, and it turned out to be a dot bomb, there were all kinds of people out there. There was pets.com, there was grocery.com, and Amazon poked its head up and stuff. So there were a ton of people that had the ideas of direct consumer sales, but it was too early. And so all this venture capital was dumped into it. And, people weren't ready to put their credit card in on a website. They just weren't.
Yeah.
People weren't ready to, think about, well, it's going to land on my porch, everything. So, but it's been an interesting run over the past 20 years with them. And I don't see it slowing down. And with the pandemic, the whole remote services has gone even another level with the amount of food delivery, and items delivery. I've gotten to the point now where, the Home Depot runs or Walmart runs and stuff like that. I'm not stepping into the store. I'm, going to do a pickup or delivery because why do I want to waste my time running around? So Anyway, we'll get off that tangent.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting business model, and it has interesting impact in the world. So, how did you? I mean, did you just sort of invent your skills on the character development? I mean, was this
Yeah,
just
it's just it's just like anything you try new. There was some trial and error, and I stumbled for a while. And we had a little writers group, and I live in Arlington, Washington,
Mhm.
and so we had a little group, and we would meet on Monday nights and get together. As 6 or 8 people, and we're all writers, obviously, and so. Looking back, we would all take turns reading what we had written that week,
Sure.
and it started out kind of rough.
We lost you, Peter. We lost you, Peter. We lost you. 8:35. Peter, Peter, Peter. Peter, Peter, Peter. Peter. Lost you there for a few minutes, or a little bit, about a minute and a half. So basically, I know we'll clip that. All right. So you got together on these Monday nights, and in the beginning it was a little rough.
Yeah. Well, we would 6 or 8 of us would sit around, it was in a private home, and we would read what we wrote that week, and it started out kind of rough, um, and I wasn't impressing anyone, and then all of us, and then all of a sudden it clicked, and it just blew up. And I had never written anything like a novel before, and didn't know how many words it should be, or how many pages a first book should be. I wrote like 750, 800 pages, and then turned it in to an editor to have to have it edited
Sure.
and proofread, and it turned out I had a book and a half.
Wow.
So 700, 800 pages. This book, the first book it'll be a series of 4, is 500 pages, and so I'm almost done with the second book, and I got a great start because of it. I've already started the third book as well.
Wow. So you already have a vision of where this is headed in the whole in the series.
Yeah, yeah. There's
That's
plenty.
cool.
I got no problem with volume.
Eh, sounds
No
like you.
writer's block here.
Yeah, no writer's block. You're not having to go out and clear your head every day. So it
No.
sounds like you got a motor that just runs, runs, runs all the time.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
That's cool. Now, do you consider yourself more of a left brain or right brain, or are you sort of balanced on that? Because
I'm strictly a left-hander.
okay,
The right hand is pretty useless.
okay,
So I guess that means I'm right-brained, right?
right brained probably. Yep,
Yeah.
yeah. So a little more on the
Yeah.
creative side. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's fantastic. So, how you said you're already half into the next one, and you started the one after that. Do you have an idea how long it'll take you to finish your next one?
Well, I should be able to finish book 2 um, uh, this summer, and
Okay,
and 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 get it going. In the first book, there's a sample of book 2, and I already have a cover for it. I don't have one with me, but it's on a website.
okay,
Um, it's the Rings of Hesseron book 1 is on Amazon right now in Kindle and um, paperback, and we're getting the hardback printed, and the audio version should be posted on Amazon, I would say, in 2, 3 weeks.
yeah,
Uh,
that's
we
fantastic.
got a really good reader.
That's fantastic. So, are you kind of hoping within 2 years to finish the series then?
I have no idea. We'll see. Well, we're up to book 2. We're getting
Okay,
close to
all
book
right, all
2.
right. I know how it is. You just don't put a time limit on creativity. It comes and goes.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. Well, you've been a great guest here today and understanding the process. It's kind of interesting. I mean, you just jumped right into this, and your first attempt is a 500-page book. There aren't a whole lot of people that do that. I know a lot of people who write technical books, and well, I have a lot of authors on the show, and to gradually get up to, they normally gradually get up to something like 500, but you jumped right in a whole hog, man, just
Yeah.
2 feet in.
Yeah. Kapow, 500 pages,
Wow, wow.
750 pages.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any cap for you. I think that, and this probably won't be your last series, I would guess. So,
I should write a book about raising girls, is what I should do.
yeah, we talked about that. Lord knows that's drama. That's for sure. I'll tell
Yeah.
you. I don't have to tell you, but I've got 3 and 2 boys, and yeah, it's a blessing, but it is work. And so there. Well, that's fantastic. So the last question I have for you this morning is one I ask all my guests. And you're a person who's done a lot of things and been very creative and very successful. We in the Western world, we have this concept called a bucket list. Things we're going to do before we, leave our time on this earth. And I actually have interviewed the bucket list guy, bucketlistguy.com. And I didn't get this concept from him. And there's always an opposite of everything in the universe, right? And so there's the positive things you want to go do, and then there's things you do not want to do. Now, that list of things you do not want to do, it rhymes with a bucket and starts with an F, but I won't say that. So that's kind of this F-it list, okay? So while you're thinking about something that might be on your F-it list, I'll give you 2 examples. I'm not eating sardines again. I don't want to open a can and have something that looks like it could swim at me. And then I will never, ever, ever again do a Lakota Sioux sweat lodge. The idea of excessive heat, excessive humidity, excessive drumming, and excessive chanting, not doing that again.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So what might be an item or 2 that's on Peter's F-it list?
It's not something I've ever thought of. I think a lot more about the things that I can do
Sure.
than the things that I can't or don't want to do.
Okay.
So,
yeah, most people don't.
some,
Most people haven't been asked this question before. And also, next time you hear somebody talk about a bucket list, you're going to remember this conversation, because not a whole lot of people are going to say, not doing that.
Yeah. I got no interest in skydiving.
Okay. I'm with
I think
you there.
those guys are crazy.
Yep. I'm with you there.
In fact, my wife's nephew just went in the army and joined the airborne, and he jumped out of an airplane last week, and his chute got tangled, and he barely pulled out of that. So I mean, that just
Wow.
kind of drives the point home. You won't catch me jumping out of an airplane.
No. My dad was an instructor in the 82nd Airborne, and not only did he jump out of plane, he threw people out of planes because the
They didn't want to go.
They didn't want to go first time or 2.
I don't blame them.
So they'd get the hook on the line, and they would be, screaming, "I'm not going," or "I'm hesitant. This is scaring me." He'd grab them by the neck and just on the back of the belt and throw them out of the plane. So no,
good
I'm
job.
not with you. I'm sorry. I get that one. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on today, and we're excited to follow your series. And I'm going to have to go get your audiobook. I don't have enough time to sit and read. I love to read and I love to consume content, but I just have, like you, just have too many things going. So I'll absolutely go
Well,
download
this is the 21st century. I don't have time to read either, so
Yeah.
I get a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah, I do too. It's really effective when we're in that kind of that unconscious state, driving to and from work and running around or mowing the lawn or whatever it happens to be. And I think that's why podcasts are so popular these days, because of that fact. We're consuming content while we're doing regular tasks. Well, appreciate you coming on, and I absolutely going to give us your book's on Amazon. Do you have it on the website or your website currently?
Yeah, my website is peterharrett.com.
Okay.
And the podcasts are there. The books are available there.
Okay.
And it's a lot of history about me, stuff that I've done. It's fun.
Well, we'll make it so you can get the podcast, this podcast downloaded simple in our process. So that's it. We thank you for coming on today. Folks, we'll call this an episode. And again, as we always remind people, please stop by the website so you can get additional information and links to all of Peter's stuff. It will be on the website here on release. And so I'll say the three things that I always say at the end of every episode: be safe, but be bold, and make it a great day.